what I always wanted to do, and I really didn't get a chance to do it until Tattoo on Youth, right? Like my fifth album, right?
Right.
Was I got known in two different worlds for two completely different reasons. And those worlds never really ever properly came together. Even to this day, there's still a disconnect between the bases because you got a whole group of folks who know what I can do off the tapes and they're aware of the tapes. But it's such a technology gap, right? Between the tape and the new shit. So, because the tapes never been like actually, like the tapes were always for free. Like I never sold the tapes. I never made any money off the tapes. None of that shit. We pressed them up, gave them away, shit like that.
I mean, they would sell them. I remember I bought Revenge of the Nerds at Tony Sports up north. But like, yeah, they would be, people would like be selling them like little bootlegs of them or whatever. But that's when, like, you were one of the first artists that I remember people going crazy online, like message boards. Like you were like a message board king. Like, and I think it got really crazy after Conflict Diamonds. That's when it was like, yo, there would just be pages on message boards of people trying to dissect your music. So I think you were definitely one of the first artists that I remember, like, as far as people just trying to figure everything out and trying to get all your music into one place, because it was so hard to find it. It's not like now where it just everything was on YouTube or Dat Piff. Like, it was hard to find it.
Oh yeah, and the reason I brought up like the technology gap piece was that you had a certain group of people on the message board, but the general public, they weren't on that shit. They were still going coconuts, or not really coconuts, but like Sam Goody, and like it was physicals still at the time. And it was kind of like this mixtape stuff feels very fleeting. So the reason I mentioned like the technology gap, right, is that you had people that they were on those boards, but they weren't representative of like mainstream market, especially at that time, right? Like mainstream physicals and shit like that. And then it felt like to try and translate what was on the tapes over into what was on BET and MTV at the time. You weren't hearing mixtape shit on MTV, right? You weren't, right? And so where we were on, I mean, we're on Arista Records, you know? So it was like, yo, we're looking at, you know, dudes of the time and the type of records that were being created in the commercial space, right? The types of videos, everything else, what was on radio, what was getting spins. And it's like mixtape style shit wasn't getting no spins. Like that was like, you need club records, you need this, you need that. So we were making like club records. Like we were looking at like, how can we do club records? How can we do street records? How can we do this? How can we do that? So again, all this is like pre-Kick Push type shit. You know what I'm saying? This is all like Kick Push is actually on some, Kick Push is almost like some mixtape shit, right? Which is really weird. But anyway, not the sidetrack. So we was kind of stuck in this space where you had two completely different audiences that I was servicing. One, I knew how to do the mixtape shit. I knew how to do the album shit. I didn't know how to do. So it was like, okay. And not that I didn't know how to do it technically. It was like, I just don't know if this shit is going to work. So I can't say if I know how to do it yet, because Wayne on an album scale. So it was always this riff. And when I did Food and Liquor, it was like, this shit, my mixtapes is better than Food and Liquor. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I felt. I was like, what's going on the mixtapes, maybe not the whole mixtape, but just like certain songs that are on the mixtapes, I would like to have songs like that on my albums. Right. But I was thinking like, you know what? Because the mixtape game is so strong, those are still part of my repertoire, right? But do people really count the mixtapes, or do people just count the albums, right? And at that time, people counted albums, right? They weren't counting mixtapes. So it was like, all right, cool. Even if you were killing it on some mixtape shit, everybody was waiting to see what you was finna do on an album, right? It was like kind of the album was like the proof, like you did all this kind of amateur joint. Now it's time to really go out here and stand on something, your first album. You know, you think Illmatic, you thinking Reasonable Doubt, you thinking Ready to Die, you thinking like first albums.
Because that's how you're measured. In hip hop, that's how you're measured forever.
So for me, it was like, you know, these first albums are varied. You know, you got club records, you got this, you got that. even on like Illmatic, you didn't have like a bunch of like super deep conceptual shit like you had on It Was, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It wasn't like I gave well, he's personifying guns and shit like that. Like he was still kind of sticking to a certain framework where he didn't get super like conceptual. So it was like, fuck, all right, we need to kind of just keep it your personal story, your relationship to hip hop, you know, talk about some politics, talk about this. We had Kick Push that kind of just came in out of nowhere. That kind of redirected the whole thing. And it was just like, all right, cool. But still, this shit ain't as good as the mixtapes. On some lyrical shit, on some conceptual shit, it just is cool. But then you see like, okay, the cool. So I'm gonna put that's mixtape energy, right? The cool on that concept record. Then you think like, what else can I kind of plug in on some mixtape energy on some conceptual shit on the album? It's like, okay, cool. But I still didn't really feel like the albums were reflective of my lyrical capacity. That was mixtapes. And I always wanted my albums to have that same lyrical impact that was on the mixtapes. And what started to happen was, that's why you get these conversations where it's like, man, Lupe not top 5 lyrical, Lupe not top 10 lyrical, he in the bottom 40 type shit, right? Bottom 50. Because they're going off the albums, right? And when you listen to the albums, you're like, yeah, this shit's basic. Nigga talking about skateboarding, talking about robot, like it's real basic shit.
Right.
When you get on the mixtapes, you get fucking Switch. You get like 4 different flows, then they talking to each other. Then you get like, oh, this nigga talking about even on later mixtapes. So you get like Double Burger with Cheese, where we start flipping all the movies. And on that,
I mean, even like when you did Sitting Sideways, when you broke down, like it was about your hat being sideways, and like you broke down every Chicago gang in that.
Yeah, like the gang shit, right? If I was able, if I had the confidence, and then also the beats, right? So the mixtapes were driven. I was able to do all that shit because the beats had already been like stamped and branded. You know what I'm saying? The concept there was, I just needed to flip it. That's harder to do when you're starting from scratch. You know what I'm saying? You got your own beat, your own situation. So it was like, man, I wish I had the Sitting Sideways beat. This is what I would have did to it. Man, I wish I had the such and such beat. This is what I would have did. If I had the Diamonds beat, this is what I would have did to it. But it's too late now, right? Like, that shit gone. And trying to recreate that from scratch is hard. It's easier to do on the mixtapes because there's less pressure to perform. Like, so I feel like I wasn't able to fully represent on an album how I did on mixtapes until Tetsu on Youth.